Good afternoon. This is Scott McMeans with Action Coach SBL. I am here with Chris Wentz from Every Key. We're going to
Scott.
have a couple minutes to talk about Chris, his business, and learn what it is he's doing to be so successful. So, Chris, if I could ask, tell us a little bit about you and what Every Key is all about.
I'm a computer science graduate of Case Western Reserve University. And while I was pursuing my computer science degree, I was also really interested in starting a business. So I took an entrepreneurship class at Case. And we were in this entrepreneurship class. A professor asked us to come up with any kind of business idea we wanted. It could be a product or a service that could, save money for people, solve a problem, make people's lives more secure, any solution you want, right? Any kind of business. And we presented this crazy idea for a universal smart key that replaces all your passwords and keys. And I'll get to that in a second. Anyway, we presented the idea to this class. And fortunately for us, the professor came up to us afterwards, shook our hands and said, guys, you should pursue this idea. You shouldn't wait for Apple or Google to do this. I want to invest some money into you guys and make this dream a reality, make this a real company. And so that kind of gave us the push in the right direction to move forward. And as far as the problem that we solve in the product, we solve the age-old problem of passwords and keys being very insecure and inconvenient. I have this big bulky key ring that I have to take with me everywhere I go. I have hundreds of different passwords as well. So many passwords that I've had to write them all on sheets of paper like this one right here. And unfortunately, most people are using the same password for everything. That's resulting in over $2 trillion being lost every year due to password mismanagement. That's expected to grow to 10 trillion by the year 2025. Anyway, we're on the mission to get rid of all this broken and outdated access control technology and replace it with something better. So introducing the revolution of access control, introducing Every Key, the world's first universal smart key. When you have this on you, it's able to unlock your phone, your laptop, your tablet, door to your office, any type of access control point, elevators, door to your car, house doors, bike locks, you name it, anything that would require a key or password to unlock, Every Key unlocks for you. And it also generates random and secure passwords for all of your different website accounts and app accounts that you use throughout the day, social media accounts, email accounts, bank accounts, anything with the username and password. Every Key generates random and secure passwords for you, logs everything in when you are around, and then locks everything down when you are away. Sorry, I just went into like a 5-minute like pitch there and everything. I'm sure you were probably
No,
looking for more of a hey, my name is Chris Wentz and I solved this problem, but I went a little bit further than that. Sorry about that.
you went as far as you needed to go to get the message across, Chris. That was outstanding.
Thank you.
I love what you guys do. I'm glad we're talking about it because obviously it's a problem that everybody faces, or at least it's a problem they haven't faced yet, but they will, because
Mhm.
the growing number of passwords and need for passwords just keeps going. So outstanding introduction. I appreciate that. So how would you describe what you've been doing with respect to your growth? Like, where did you start? Where are you now? And what do you attribute your growth? Like, what makes you successful right now in the business?
Yeah. So, when we first came up with this idea during college, the goal was really to be the next Apple, right? To provide something to the consumer market that every Joe, Dick, and Harry out there is using to solve their password and key problems, right? So we launched on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, the crowdfunding websites, and we actually broke the record on both of those platforms. So we were doing great in the consumer space. But through those efforts, it just became so obvious to us that the biggest problem here is not necessarily with consumers, it's actually with large enterprises and businesses, right? So we started to kind of shift the focus, if you will, and we started to customize the product a little bit and change the feature set to be something that would appeal not to your everyday person but to companies as well. And we still sell to consumers. That's what I find really passionate about this business, honestly. Like, that's the part of this business that I love, but that's not what's going to scale us to the moon and make us $1 billion business. So I think the takeaway there is to be flexible, right? And to listen to what your customers are saying and go where your customers are telling you to go, right? Because I think for the longest time, we continued to pursue the consumer as our primary customer when we probably should have made that shift to enterprise earlier. And oftentimes these big business shifts that you make, they're scary, but they ultimately end up paying off in the end. And you look back at it and you're like, wow, why didn't I do that sooner?
Interesting. that you found your pathway, not secondary, but you found your pathway after you launched and you made a shift. That's not too many businesses can do that because they're so focused on it. What was it that made you realize that enterprise was the better way to go, or the larger piece? And you're not abandoning, if I understand right, you're not abandoning
Yep.
consumer, but you made that shift. What was the trend, the data point? What was the turning point that said, all right, we're going to go here versus there?
Yeah, so I like to get a lot of the way that I handle feedback, right? Because you're constantly pitching your business. I do that whole key and password presentation probably 5 times a day, right? And so I'm getting 5 to 10 data points of feedback every single day from investors and customers and potential new hires and such. So I'm getting a lot of these data points, right? And in my mind, I'm kind of accumulating them together and then averaging them and figuring out where am I getting the most feedback, right? And we were getting a lot of feedback from both customers and from investors saying that, hey, there's enterprises have this problem in a big way. You guys really need to start looking at that market. And then on top of that, once we did actually start shipping product and people were starting to sign up for for an account with EveryKey, we started to take a look at how are they signing up? Are they using their Gmail accounts or are they using their corporate accounts? And it turned out that most of them were actually using their corporate email accounts to sign up. So we were like, hey, wait a minute, maybe this isn't, we think we're targeting consumers, but maybe the actual people buying this product are businesses and ultimately business customers are using this. And so that it was kind of those two takeaways, both listening to the feedback of investors, customers, everybody that we talk to on a daily basis, and then also just looking at the database of our users and figuring out who are these people, and then starting to survey them too. When we had that realization that maybe these people are using it in a business environment, we as a very privacy and security focused company weren't collecting too much data on like what websites are they logging into and stuff. That stuff we don't touch. So we had to kind of reach out to them and do a survey and ask like, hey, how are you using this product? And those survey results showed that they're using it in a business environment primarily.
That's exceptional. And the reason I say that, Chris, very rarely do businesses take a look at data, whether it's their own data or data that's available to them, and make decisions effectively. And coming from what I do, it's interesting to see that you guys have been able to do that, because most people get so entrenched in this direction that they don't see the forest through the trees, right? And I commend you for that. How many people work with you at EveryKey?
We're a small team internally. I think we only have about 6 employees currently, but we do utilize a lot of kind of outside work, especially since the pandemic has started to make this a global economy, right? You can now hire somebody in India and work with them just as effectively as somebody here in the US, because everything's happening over Zoom anyway. We actually had an office in Cleveland, Ohio, up until January of this year, and we decided to forgo the physical office environment and become a fully remote company in January, because it just didn't make sense. We were like, at one point we were forcing people to still come into an office, and it was just not working out. We were losing some of our best engineers and some of our best talent, and it just was limiting ourselves. We were limiting ourselves to hiring only in one specific city, whereas we could be hiring anywhere in the world.
Yeah, it's a great situation to be in, because you have the opportunity to hire from wherever, but you're getting the most out of the talent you're getting to be a part of your organization. What I'm curious about, Chris, what's the biggest learnings that you've had as an employer, right? You just talked about, people being in the office or virtual, one location versus another. What is the things that you have learned in the last, I don't know, so many years as an employer, right? Now you've got people on your team. What have you learned as an employer that really could be educational for the people listening?
Oh man, I guess this gets into leadership and such. I feel like I'm still like a developing leader, right? I feel like I have all this passion. I'm a decent engineer and communicator and such, and I can design a pitch deck and stuff and pitch to investors. But when it comes to leadership, that's something where I feel like I'm on this lifelong journey to figure out what the best leadership style is, and I haven't found it yet. When I first started EveryKey, I was very like we got to get this done. If you don't get this done, I'm going to be super mad. And, really, just probably not a very Steve Jobs type of mentality towards things of like, you're so passionate about it that it is hard for you to believe that somebody else could not be as passionate. And when they don't achieve their milestones, it just really rubs you the wrong way and everything. So I think at the start, I was very much more that aggressive, very Steve Jobs type of leader. And then I think I took a shift in the opposite direction of becoming very much like, hey, everybody can just do whatever the hell they want. Sorry for swearing. Can bleep that out in post. People can just do whatever they want. Just whatever, hopefully we get the work done, right? And so now I'm trying to find that middle ground. Now I'm still trying to find that middle ground of holding people accountable, getting things done, and working towards this goal, and making sure that we keep that passion and that aggressive, move forward nature of our company, but also still be very human with people and nice, and the family type of mentality, right? Yeah.
No, it makes sense. I like that. And I just wrote down a couple different words. Passion, obviously, that makes a whole lot of sense. Intelligence, you got that. And that's what you want out of your people. But one thing that kind of pulls out is culture, right? You're a leader, you're trying to develop this culture to make sure that people that are on the team are doing it for the right reasons, right? Don't get me wrong, everybody wants a paycheck, right? But what is it, the reward that they get by working there? Right. And it's doing something that's going to be better for whomever's going to be buying it. So I commend you for that. And there's always room to grow, as you said, because it's a lifelong piece. The company doesn't start off and then end at the same point. There's always room to grow.
Right.
So when we're talking about some of the things that you are as a leader and some of the things you've done as a business owner, how do you balance your work-life situation? How do you go about that? As Chris Wentz, there was a baby in the background, so I know you've got a lot of things in your life, right? There's plates spinning abound. So how do you, and maybe the better question is, how would you describe to other people trying to start their own business, how do you manage your work-life balance?
Yeah, and this is another thing where I think I did a poor job of it at first. When you first start a business, you're so passionate about it and you want to spend every waking moment on it. You don't want to anything else other than your business just feels like a distraction, right? Anything from like family events to going out with your friends to the movies and everything, that just all feels like distraction away from the business. I could be working on the business and getting more done. So you end up kind of just saying no to a lot of different social activities, and you don't have much of a social life in those first couple of years. And fortunately I have evolved beyond that at this point. I even at one point, so we had this, this office in Little Italy in Cleveland, and I even moved into the office when the pandemic started because I was like, hey, I'm paying, $1,500 for an apartment and I'm commuting 30 minutes to work every day. And a lot of people aren't even wanting to come into an office right now anyway. They're wanting to work from home. Why am I doing this? Why don't I just live in this office? And that created a terrible work-life balance because now, everything's in one location and all that. So fortunately, I think I've found a better answer to that at this point. I think it comes down to allowing yourself time to just completely shut off your work mindset and to spend time with your family, with your friends. And as you said, we've got a crying baby in the background. So the story behind that, I've been in a relationship for about 5 years now, and I decided, and she's in Mexico actually. So I moved to Mexico, to Pachuca, Mexico, right outside Mexico City, when we decided to get rid of our office. And it's created a great work-life balance for me because now I'm with my fiance, I'm with our kids, and I have time where we as a family, go karting or go to the movie theater. And I shut off my work brain. I try my best not to think about anything every key related. I try to silence my phone, make sure that I'm not looking at my emails and my text messages and such, since there's always an inflow of work coming in. And then, I pick it back up once I'm back into work mode. So it's still just like leadership. I feel like this is something that I haven't mastered yet. So ask me that same question in about a year or two. Maybe I'll have a better answer for you.
I think the answer was a good one. The changes that'll happen in the next year or so, that's up to you, but I think you're on the right path. One question I thought would be really good to hear about is, what are some of the common misperceptions or misconceptions about running a business that people would probably not realize but love to hear?
Yeah, I mean, I think we watch these movies about, Apple and Facebook starting, and it seems so, they're condensing the history of a, 10 plus year company in a lot of cases into, just an hour and a half. So it seems like it happens so quickly, right? I think the
Yeah.
biggest misconception I would like to tell people is, even with these big success stories, even with these companies that seem like they took off overnight, it still takes some time. It's still, I think it was maybe Steve Jobs who said it takes 10 years to build an overnight success. And I think that statement couldn't be more real. Everything takes longer than you think it will. Everything costs more money than you think it will. And it's a grind, getting from point A to point B is a grind. But I think what you also don't realize is that grind is fun. It's addicting. It's a roller coaster, and you really get addicted to it. You really love to see the company succeed and to move forward, even if it does feel like small steps at sometimes. So I would say that I'm enjoying the process more than I thought I would. I thought that I would mostly enjoy the success at the end of the tunnel, right? But the process is equally rewarding.
That's good to hear. I think people we've talked to so far have all said the same thing. It takes 10 years to make an overnight success, right? And the misconception, I think, that is shown to be a common thread is the amount of work that goes into it that people just don't see. I had somebody make the comment, it's like a duck on the water, right? Looks calm, but underneath there's so much leg movement going on, the paddling. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I think we've got time for a couple more questions. I'd love to know, what advice would you give an 18-year-old Chris Wentz?
That's a good question. I mean, I think the 18-year-old me might already know this, but I'm not sure. Perseverance, right? Never giving up. We've had so many situations at Every Key where the chips were down. You felt like, hey, I don't know if this business is even going to exist a month from now, because we've hit this roadblock, we've hit this brick wall. It just seems insurmountable. It doesn't seem like we're going to be able to make it through this. And with perseverance, with hard work, with teamwork and leadership, and all the good things that go into building a business, you make it through, and you ultimately end up succeeding, and you make it through some of the most challenging times, and you look back at it and you laugh, and you just say, hey, can't believe that we were so stressed out about that. The success was right around the corner, right? I've heard stories about, like gold miners that are mining for gold, and then they give up when they're just a foot away from gold, right? And then somebody else buys the gold mine from them, and then they continue to mine, and now they strike that gold. So you never know when you're just a foot away from gold, I guess is the advice that I would give.
I like that. Never know when you're a foot away. Now that's the upside, right? That's the good stuff. What are some of the, if you had to say, boom, top two challenges you face every week, every day, what would those challenges be for you and Every Key?
Let's see. I guess for me in personal life, relationships are hard when you're running a business. You're so focused on your business that everything from the relationship with your significant other to your friendships to your relationship with your family members, it's tough to manage. Time management becomes a skill that you really have to master, and I still haven't mastered that by any means. But it's challenging. So yeah, I've had plenty of great relationships that I think could have probably worked out a lot better than they did. And as a result of me running a business, sometimes, unfortunately, you make these sacrifices, and some of your best relationships end up going downhill as a result. So that's an unfortunate negative and downside from a personal aspect. As far as challenges that the business faces, at this point, we've pretty much overcome most of the technical challenges for Every Key. We have a product that people can use and is shipping and everything. There's always going to be technical challenges in any product development company, right? So that's an obvious one. I mean, finances is always an issue, right? And like, you're always trying. Sometimes companies probably appear to be a lot more financially stable than they really are. Most startups out there, their CEOs have their hair on fire 90% of the time, and they're just wondering, how am I going to make payroll next week, right? And obviously
Yeah.
some of that's offset by, you raise a big round of funding and now you have all this money in the bank, but now you still have financial problems because it's like, now I have all this responsibility towards my investors and everybody that's in the company and my employees and myself. And you don't want to let any of those people down. So now you have to be very responsible with that financing. So just being very diligent about it. And when you do get into those situations where money is tight, managing that as effectively as you can to keep the ship afloat. And when you do have a lot of money, making sure that you manage that effectively, that you don't just spend it just because you have it, right? It's very easy if you just raised a huge financing round to, go out and, buy a new water cooler for the office and give everybody raises and everything. But that's not what you need to be doing. You need to be, you still need to be working towards that vision. You still need to be spending that dollar as if it's your last.
I like it. The one word that you made comment to, vision, that's I think the key to every business is establishing the vision and how you go after that vision. You've done an excellent job here, Chris. I've got so many notes here. I appreciate everything that you had to say. Two last things. I'm going to ask you, what's the most influential book you've ever read? And then I'm going to leave you the last couple minutes or so to just give me the top advice you would give to anybody looking to get into business. So if you could get after those two questions, that would be great.
Okay, let's see. Well, rewinding to my last point, I feel like I said that, you go out and raise this huge financing round and now you get a water cooler for the office. That was such a dumb example. I should have chosen something cooler, like a ping pong table or, a snack bar or something for the office. And as far as a book, pretty generic for the startup world, but The Hard Thing About Hard Things is a really great book by Mark Andreessen, which I just live by, right? It talks about the struggle. It talks about the times where the chips were down. This was, it's essentially the building of Netscape, the web browser, which ended up, being very successful in the end, but they had to go through a ton of challenges, and they face these, he talks about how every company has at least 3 moments in their lifetime where you're not sure if you're going to be in business next week, because it's tough. It's tough to start a business and you're always going to go through those challenges. And hearing that from somebody not on my level, but so much more successful, just infinitely more successful than me, is just so good. It's such validation that, like, hey, maybe we are a foot from gold. Maybe we are going to still be successful, because the people who were successful in the past, who have been able to build something that's, huge and widely used, they went through the same struggle. They went through the same things, and they're using the same strategies that you used to try to get out of that and to try to get to the next step. I guess that's my recommendation for book. The second part of the question was just kind of general business advice that I give to somebody, right?
If you, to close out the interview, Chris, what would you say to anybody that came up to you and said, I want to start a business? What would your advice be to them?
Okay. I mean, besides just the generic kind of like working hard and sticking with it and continuing to persevere, when you have one of these challenges in front of you and you're able to overcome that challenge, that may be a unique selling proposition for your business over a competitor, right? So I'll give you an example. When we first started Every Key, I had an engineer who was also a really good friend of mine, because I was hiring a lot of friends at that point and everything. And this engineer said, Chris, you're never going to be able to make this product live up to its name. It's never going to be your Every Key. We wanted to build this off of Bluetooth, and Bluetooth is 1-to-1. You take one Bluetooth device and you connect it to one other Bluetooth device at a time. And I was kind of like, he might have a point here. We might not really be able to make this work. This might not be technologically feasible to be able to overcome this challenge. And, with that process of persevering and continuing to keep the nose to the grindstone, eventually we came up with a solution. And that solution has turned into one of the biggest pieces of intellectual property. I actually have it right here. We filed a utility patent on the technology that allows Every Key to connect to multiple devices to be your Every Key, right? And we got a patent patent on it. And that patent has generated hundreds of thousands of dollars of licensing revenue without us even going out and asking companies to license it. If we went out and asked, I think it would be even more than that. It would be in the millions for sure, because it's just such a valuable patent. Anyway, the learning lesson there is that something that seemed like such a challenge in front of us, when you look at it in hindsight, it's being able to overcome that challenge has become one of the biggest pieces of value of this company. And I encourage you to think the same way. Whenever you encounter a challenge, think of an innovative, different way to overcome said challenge, and then use the fact that you overcame that challenge as a strength for your business, not a weakness that you had the challenge to begin with.
Love it. That is excellent. Excellent stuff. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate your time. And we're going to close out the interview, and we'll talk sometime soon.